That's Nick.
And that's Joseph, and today we're here to talk about Retaliation, the sophomore film directed by the Shammasian brothers, Ludwig and Paul, starring Orlando Bloom, which is available to stream as of July 24th, 2020, courtesy of Saban Films. It originally premiered at the 2017 Edinburgh Film Festival, and is now just finally making its way to our shores.
Should I try to tell the story?
Yes, please do.
Okay. The film focuses on a man named
Malky,
who's played by Orlando Bloom.
Mm-hmm.
So we find him working like in construction. He's part of like a demolition team, and his current project is to like demolish a church.
Mm-hmm.
And it's immediate right away that he sort of like enjoys doing this and has sort of a negative relationship with the church. Initially, we see him like interacting with coworkers. He has sex with a lady, like the local bartender.
Emma, played by Janet Montgomery.
While he's in the restroom at the bar one day, he sees a priest walk in and immediately is triggered. So you can put two and two together and figure that he was the victim of sexual abuse by a priest in the church, specifically the man who walked into the bathroom,
mm-hmm.
who had been missing from the town, maybe had been relocated to a different church. But now he's back again.
After 30 years.
After 30 years, and Malky's behavior like switches.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's hostile, grumpy, he's acting out. We see him sort of like, there's a scene where he, I guess, like sexually assaults himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not funny. So it builds up to, well, additionally, he has a interesting relationship with his mother.
Mm-hmm.
He's never told his mother about the abuse. She is clearly disappointed in how he's turned out because Malky is probably like 42.
Yeah, it's got to be in his 40s.
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
She's disappointed in him. He really never made anything of himself. Because he hasn't told her that he was abused, she doesn't understand his negative relationship with the church. Mm-hmm. Additionally, Malky went to prison for some time for like brutally assaulting a person. It culminates with his mother dying.
Mm-hmm.
Like he comes home one day to her home to find her dead. And that's when he feels compelled to tell her the truth about his abuse. So it sort of sets him free, which allows him to then go to the priest at the church and tell him what he did. But prior to that, Malky had gone and visited the church with the intention to attack the priest.
Mm-hmm.
And he's about to when the priest's young niece interrupts them.
Mm-hmm.
So thankfully that was interrupted. But after his mom dies and he confesses to her, he goes to the church, confesses to the priest in a pretty moving scene.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The priest ends up coming out of the confessional and essentially acknowledging what Malky has told him. He doesn't say he's sorry, he doesn't say anything, he just shakes his hand and that's the end of it. So Malky goes on about his business. The priest ends up, after like that evening or the next day, ends up lighting himself on fire.
Self-immolation, yes.
The end.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay.
So what did you think about this film?
I thought it was interesting. Whenever you see a delay in years, such as this, for something to be released,
You can assume.
You can assume some things, maybe be a little wary about it. But I really think it's kind of just the nature of the material. How do you sell something like this?
Because the trailer didn't do this film justice.
No, and
because it's deceptive. I thought it was going to be like a revenge movie.
Right, and yes, like a revenge thriller. Neither does the poster. It's a little bit deeper than that.
Yeah.
The selling point is Orlando Bloom, which
Katy Perry's baby daddy.
Mm-hmm, who you've kind of been familiar with because you haven't seen Lord.
I just know his penis.
Oh well.
That's all I know.
The Lord of the Rings films, of course.
I didn't know he was in Lord of the Rings.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
I knew. Wait, who's the one in the Star Wars movies?
The one, lots of people. I don't know who you're talking about.
There's the first three from the 80s.
Mark Hamill, Harrison
and then
Ford.
the next three that we saw at someone's home, Eric's home. Who's that kid?
The next three.
there's like the 3 in the 80s, and then there were the 3 that were in the 2000s.
Oh,
right?
Hayden Christensen?
Oh, so I thought Orlando Bloom was Hayden Christensen.
No,
So I really don't know Orlando Bloom except for Katy Perry. Anyway, I'll just go through my notes. So, an important story point is one of his co-workers, the one guy with the full head of hair and the beard.
Joe, played by Alex Ferns, who was in Chernobyl.
He, while they're at the bar, he relays a story to some young kid about a steak. And I don't know if he was talking about S-T-E-A-K or S-T-A-K-E, because I found his accent difficult to understand. So I don't know what the story was, but he tells a story like, have I told you the steak story? And he tells this long story that I only understood like 10% of. Then, like 30 minutes later, he tells the bartender, the lady who's like Orlando Bloom's character's girlfriend, did I ever tell you about the steak story? Tells the story again. I still don't understand what he's saying. However, what I did understand from the end is that there was like a fight where this guy like brutally assaulted a man. But Orlando Bloom's character decides to take the heat for it because the friend says I can't go to jail. So Malky, being a good friend, is like, well, don't worry, I'll do it. So Malky did time for his friend's crime, which kind of ruined his life, which is also why his mother thinks so poorly of him. So it's a pretty big, when you consider that plus the abuse, I mean, this poor character has really like just had the short end of the stick.
And going back to being kind of mismarketed, it really is just, it is a character study. And the deeper meaning that the writer Geoff Thompson, I believe, is trying to get at is about the kind of the power of forgiveness.
Orlando Bloom's character, we see him somewhat nude, and he has a lot of tattoos that didn't really make sense to me.
Well, I noticed one of them was the Eye of Horus, which I think is like a healing, well-being kind of, that it like maybe it was indicating that he has sought guidance outside of religion, perhaps.
I feel like there are a lot of movies where these characters get like these full body tattoos. Like,
well, it's getting a tattoo itself, a form of physical self-punishment, perhaps.
Sure, but it always seems kind of like it's just a gimmick in film. They're like, oh, this actor is going to undergo this like transformation with the tattoos. That's how it kind of felt to me.
Sure.
So because he has a lot of them. It's not just like the one you referred to.
It's borderline like Eastern Promises.
It seems extraneous.
It was based on a short story, Romans 12:20, which is of course the scripture that we are directly referenced, which sets up the self-immolation at the end. And originally the film was called Romans before it received another transformative title change. I think Orlando Bloom is pretty good as an actor that I really don't think much, like I really have no thoughts about when I think of Orlando.
After watching this, I did like him. I think he looks good. His acting is fine.
Yeah, and there are two scenes in particular that I thought he's good in. One is where he's kind of railing at his dead mother, and then of course in the confessional. I really like the actress that plays his mom, Reid.
Okay.
She, you might know her from Hot Fuzz. There's one of the many older British ladies in that film. But she's really good in a Roger Michell film from 2003, 2 or 3, called The Mother, where she's having a sexual relationship with Daniel Craig, who's also sleeping with her daughter. That's a very bizarre, uncomfortable film. I feel is not referenced a lot now, but I don't know, I thought she was kind of perfect for the part. I don't think it was overdone. She was just this nitpicky, disappointed old mother.
Continuing, I think the story has some pretty familiar like plot points revolving around someone who's been sexually abused. The first is that we see Malky, Orlando Bloom's character, take like a metal rod and like shove it up his ass.
Lubricate it.
Rub it with Vaseline and shove it up his ass while he's like staring at himself in the mirror. And it appears that he's doing it like as punishment.
Yeah, he says it actually. He
says it, but in when we see it, it's not quite clear. Like, is he enjoying this? Like, he thinks he like deserves this. I don't know. It was shocking. His character also likes watching porn. So the story really does try to set it up that he may be like sexually
a deviant.
Well, not a deviant. I think like because of his abuse and his trauma, he's like sexually confused.
It has shaped what and how he's titillated.
Because he has this loving girlfriend who he can't really have like intimate sex with. He's only like having, like sodomizing her in the storeroom of the bar. He doesn't want to look at her. He's not very tender with her.
He doesn't want to commit to the relationship.
So all very like check the boxes of, textbook.
Sure. Yeah.
There's another scene where he gets upset and like stabs his hand.
Which I took to mean as kind of like a reference to the stigmata, like inflicting Christ's wounds.
Yeah, that was frustrating because then after he does that, he's a manual laborer. So it's like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. You would hurt your hands. But then when he goes to the hospital and the doctor says like, you need surgery, and he's like, no. He ultimately does because she tells him you won't be able to use your hands. But that was frustrating. That's the only note I have, except that I thought the trailer after watching the film initially, I thought, the trailer really like misrepresented the film. But after I thought about it more, I feel like the trailer is kind of exploitative.
Well, yeah, it's
because this is a serious story.
It's pushing the film in an exploitative territory when this is clearly not what the writer, filmmakers, or actors meant it to be. But if you actually watch it, it actually does play like that. That said, if we're segueing into things we didn't like, it is.
Well, I was gonna say I did like the screenplay.
Sure.
I think the dialogue is effective. I think the story is strong. But now you can segue into what you didn't like.
It's a bit dry, and not all of the screenplay works for me. I didn't really think, or it wasn't fleshed out well enough, the street preacher that he has the...
let's talk about the street preacher, yeah.
Paul, played by Charlie Creed Miles. I thought that was a little overwrought and overdone, but it was a way to kind of develop Malky's pain and someone else having shared a similar experience.
The street preacher shares with Malky that he was also sexually abused, but by his dad. So they kind of connect, but then the street preacher ends up being kind of crazy because he's super religious. He's found religion as a way to heal, and he's trying to impress that onto Malky.
I liked the idea because Malky is able to trigger him considerably to where they resort to fisticuffs over it, clearly not really over his own trauma, and how religion really is just a mask for that and not really dealing with the trauma.
And how unqualified, I think a lot of times, it's like if I'm an alcoholic and I'm trying to help you, like just because you've been through something doesn't mean that you're equipped to process your own feelings, let alone someone else's. So I like that character for that, but I agree that while I had said I think it's the acting, because the dialogue from the street preacher worked for me.
Sure.
I just think it was the acting that was not.
It's your opinion, come on. And compared to other films about priests who are pedophiles, Spotlight, of course, is an easy reference. Francois Ozon had a film in 2019, By the Grace of God, with Melville Poupas and Denis Minochet, and I forget the other one, Swan Arlone, it's based on a true story. As it premiered at the Berlin Film Festival, I think the French judicial system was still dealing with that court case, which was a big deal. But that was a much more French perspective, but very invested in the emotional arc of those characters, which I don't think we really quite get into here.
Sure. So the acting from... I just think like Orlando Bloom, while his acting was fine, the film didn't feel gritty to me. In conjunction with the cinematography, which I didn't really love, the film doesn't... Because someone... Oh no, that was who was watching it with us. But like it feels gloomy because they're in London, but it doesn't... It's just very gray and neutral, and while a person could argue that that is sort of like representative of his mood, I think his mood is more about rage. I wanted to see more like darkness and maybe some reds and some rich, deep, bloody colors.
Purples.
Yeah. Like I don't think the palette works for Malky's like anger.
And then also the very ending with the priest, played by James Smillie.
That shit comes out of nowhere.
I felt that but by default it has to happen because Orlando Bloom, in the biblical passage Romans 12:20. is basically, to summarize that, is when you forgive someone who has wronged you, you put, like, hellfire will break above their head or something. They will be forced to acknowledge their wrongs against you.
Right.
Which felt very much kind of like that Indonesian horror film we watched, like, go ahead, kill me, I'll haunt you.
Impedivore,
yeah.
which I do recommend.
But just funny how religion works and across cultures. But Orlando Bloom is, we're left to believe, going to be healing himself potentially, but the priest at this point, we can't just end this kind of film with the priest just shaking his hand and saying, okay, goodbye. It's almost like this film had to end this way because can you imagine if there was no punishment for the priest? Like what kind of
because most priests don't get punished.
Well, no, that's reality. But I'm
Right.
saying that in the parameters of cinema, it's almost like we had to show that he has this extreme punishment.
I shouldn't have said it comes out of nowhere because the passage that you're referencing explains like that this could happen, but I think it's just like the arc of the priest from when he's confronted to when he decides to do this is non-existent.
Right. So
He's just sitting at like a child's party or his niece's birthday party, and you just see in his face that he's affected.
And he wanders not too terribly far off.
And
from that.
he just kind of goes off like in the distance, like, so now his niece who witnesses him like having been lit aflame, now she's traumatized. So he's just traumatizing kids all around the world. But
yeah, but it almost felt like, oh, we have to show this. We can't just,
It was shocking. I don't have anything else. What would you give this film?
I think 2.5 out of 5 is fair.
Is that what I said I would give it?
I don't remember.
Oh. I was going to say 3.
Oh,
I would give it 3.
Go ahead.
I would give it 3 out of 5.
Sure, 3 out of 5. There.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, bye.
Bye.